Okay, well, good morning, ninth grade. Here's beginning to a new week, and so we're going to do a new lesson. It's 12.5, and then this is on the quadratic formula. Okay, the reason we're skipping ahead to this is because you will use this guy in Algebra II especially, and you're going to use it a lot. So we want to make sure that we understand what we're doing. So this is on page 502. So you will definitely want to turn there. You will definitely want to be on page 502 so you can follow along, okay? So when we have something like this, right, ax squared plus bx plus c, right, that's our trinomial. Now we set it equal to 0 like we did in our last lesson. But now the difference is we have a formula. Instead of trying to solve it the way we did before, we have a new way that we can solve this. So this formula, so this would be an example if this was like 3x squared plus 4x plus 15, something like that, right? Would be equals 0. That's that's the kind of problem we have. Now, very important thing that we have to understand here. A is always with the x squared, okay? And B here is always with the 1x, and then C has no x. And the key part is that these always have to be on the left side. Okay, now you're going to see why this is important here in a second, but they always have to be on the left side with 0 on the right side. Okay, right side. So let's do, here's the formula. I'll write it down, and then we will try and use it some example. So x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared, that's not a 6, minus 4ac, all of that divided by 2a. So if you want to, you need to write this down. This is the theorem. This is on the top of page 503. Okay, you need to write that down. That is the quadratic equation. It is very, 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 very important. Okay, so solving for that is absolutely necessary. So this, you will use this guy right here all the time. Like I can't tell you how many times you'll use this in the remainder of math. That's why we skipped ahead to it, because it's so important. Okay, so let's say they give us this one. This is example 2. Okay, so this is example 2. So if you're following along, example 2 on page 503, they give us x squared plus 5x minus 6 equals 0. Okay, now I just take these. Remember, which one is A? A is in front of the what? So A in this case is 1. That makes it very easy. B in this case is 5. And C in this case is negative 6. Okay, so now I just write it out. So I put negative, I do x equals, what is negative b? So I do negative, and then there's a positive 5. So it's going to be negative 5 plus or minus. So I have to do it two ways. So I'll write it this way first, though. Plus or minus the square root. What is b squared? So in this case, it's not b anymore. Now it's 5 squared minus, okay, and now I have 4 times, what's a? A again is 1. 4 times 1 times what's c? Negative 6. All of that under the square root sign. All of that divided by 2 times 1, because a is 1. Okay? Now, at this step, I need to solve it and condense down, right? So I take this, and I have x equals, I have negative 5. He still stays the same, plus or minus. What is that? That's the, now I'm in the square root, 25, 5 squared, minus, what is 4 times 1 times 6? So that's 24. But there's 2 minuses. Okay? So that becomes plus 24. All of that divided by what's 2 times 1 is just 2. Okay, so I'm going to erase this guy here and go over now to this side here. Okay? Now, what is 25 plus 24? Well, that's 49. So I got negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 49 divided by 2, which then is negative 5 plus or minus 7, right? Do you see that? 49 is the square root of 49 is 7 divided by 2. Now I'm going to come back up here and erase this side so I have space to work this problem. Okay, now coming up here, I have negative 5 plus or minus 7 divided by 2. So I just solve it two ways. One way I do with the negative, one way I do with the positive. okay? So now I'm going to take this and do -5. I'm going to do plus first, plus 7 divided by 2. That equals, what's 5? -5 plus 7 is 2 divided by 2. So one answer is 1. X equals 1. And then I do the other one. I did this one, so now you got to do the negative here. So I got -5 minus 7 divided by 2, which is -12 on top divided by 2, which is -6. So my X answers, I can rewrite this whole thing now as X equals -6 comma 1. There's my final big old answer. Okay, so it's just plugging in the numbers. That's the best way that I can try and explain that. Is you literally just plug them in and solve all the way until the end. Okay, so let's do one like example 3. Okay, so this is example 3, and this is on the top of the next page. It's 3y squared minus 4y equals 8. Now remember what I said, this guy has to go on this side, so when we rewrite that, we're going to erase that and put -8 equals 0. Right? We subtracted 8 from both sides, and now we can do our quadratic equation. Okay, so we go back to our equation. So if you need to keep that equation page there, that will be helpful, right? We have x equals, what is -b? We have a -4, okay, plus or minus the square root of -4 squared minus 4 times, what's a? A is 3 and c is -8. All of that divided by 2 times a, which is, again, a is 3. So now the first thing I would do is see this right here. These two negatives become one big positive. So I'm going to x equals, it's actually +4, plus or minus, what is this right here? The 4 squared is 16. And then I have -4 times 3, which is -12. -12 times -8 is a big hulking number. It is it is 112. So if we have 12 times 8, I'm doing it by hand, but it should be 96. So I have plus 96. Why is it a plus? Look at this. Negative times negative becomes a positive. So I have that. I don't know why I wrote this enormously long line up here. But all of that now is divided by 2 times 3, which is 6. Okay. Now this stage, I add this was 16 plus 96 is 112. So I have 4 plus or minus the square root of 112 divided by 6. And then I say, what is the square root of, in this one, I would leave it, I'm actually going to use the calculator and solve it because I don't want to know an actual number, which I don't think they did this on the example problem, but that's okay. So I want to do, what is the square root of 112? Square root of 112 is 10.58. Okay, so now I have 4 plus or minus 10.58, all of that divided by 6. So now I'm going to erase over here, since we already got to that step. If you need to go back and pause it to get there, go for it. Now I'm going to come over here and finish the problem. So now I'm going to do the first one, I'm going to do plus. So 4 plus 10.58 divided by 6. I add the top together and I get 14.58, divide that by 6, and this equals 2.43. Okay, so there's one answer, is 2.43. Now I do the other one, which is the subtraction sign. So I do 4 minus 10.58 divided by 6. And when I type that in the calculator, I do 4 minus 10.58 is negative 6.58 divided by 6 is negative 1.1. Okay, so when I write the final answer for all of that, I'm going to write it up here. All I do is I just say x equals 2.43, comma, negative 1.1. And there's my final answer. Okay, so the key part of these is really to just plug them in. You guys can do it. I know, I believe in you. One of the important things to understand is, one of the most important things to understand is to put it in order, right? If you have something that looks like this, right, you got to get this over here to this side. Okay, they all have to be on the same side, or else you don't know which one's B which one's not b. You don't know, you have to get that on the left side, and then you just plug it in the equation. So what it's really going to come down to is using the signs right and all those things, okay? So let me see if I can do one quickly here that should make it pretty straightforward. Let's do, this one is one of your homework problems, so if you want to follow along, go for it. Do it quickly. X squared plus 4x plus 3 equals 0, right? So I have, what is the negative? Negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 16, right? 4 squared, so I'm going to condense some of these steps. 4 squared minus 4 times 1 times 3. All of that divided by 2 times a, and again, a is 1, so times 1. So that's going to equal negative 4 plus or minus the square root. Okay, what is 4 times 3 is 12. What is 16 minus 12? That's 4. So the square root of 4 divided by 2. So now I have x equals negative 4 plus or minus 2, right? That's the square root of 4 is 2 divided by 2. That equals negative 4 plus 2 divided by 2, and that is negative 2 divided by 2. So one answer here is negative 1. I chose the plus first, so now let's do the minus. Negative 4 minus 2 divided by 2 equals negative 6 divided by 2, which is negative 3. So my answers on that one are x equals negative 1, comma, negative 3. Okay, that one was very easy to solve. So it's very straightforward. You can always use the quadratic formula no matter what kind of answers you would get, okay? So some of the book wants you to leave it in fraction form. I don't care if you write it in decimal form. I'm good either way, okay? Oh, one important thing. If it's ever like this, a squared minus 9 equals 0. Okay, when you go for b, okay, there's no b, right? Here's the squared, there's a, and get it, it's actually an a, but it's a, and this is right here, this is a c. Where's b? Question mark. We just put in 0. Okay, when there's no b, we put in 0. Okay, so if we wanted to solve this problem, we would just put in a 0. So we do x equals, we have plus negative 0 plus or minus the square root of 0 minus, and then we have 4 times 1 times negative 9, right? And so what does that get? You have negative here and a negative here, so it becomes positive 36. So you're going to have 0 plus or minus the square root of 36 divided by, and you just have 2. And so now you have negative 6 divided by 2, so one answer is negative 3, and then you have 6 divided by 2, so the other answer is positive 3. Okay, now if you want to take the time to actually go through that one, this is also in your homework ones, so go ahead and you can, if you get confused, remember, if there's no no b, then you just put in a 0, or for whichever one there's not. So we are on page 505. This is 12.5, and we are going to be doing 1 through 4 all, and then we're going to be doing 7 through 14 all. Okay, this is the homework for today. Okay, Mr. H is over and out.